All right, well, thank you everyone for joining us today. This is Jonathan Giroir from TechSoft 3D. I'm the Technical Marketing Manager here, and I'm joined by Evan Knutula from Siemens PLM Software, the VP of Component Sales, as well as Gavin Bridgman, the VP of Products here at TechSoft 3D. And we're very excited to be talking about this integration between Hoops Exchange and Parasolid. So data exchange and solid modeling. We've been working very hard for the last few years on creating a technology integration between the two. It's been a joint effort between both of our engineering teams, and really, as we look at that technology and see how it's being received in the industry, it really is true that we are driven to fuel innovation with unmatched 3D technology, and that's something we want to show you today. Not just that integration, but also how to use our different toolkits to power your different engineering applications. To get started, we wanted to show you that exact integration. So the first thing we're going to do is bring up a viewer that is based on both Hoops Exchange for bringing in data, as well as Parasolid to take that data and you can then do modeling operations with it. And the front end is based also on Hoops Visualize for visualizing that CAD data. Now, Hoops Exchange is able to load over 25 different CAD file formats in their native form very efficiently and effectively. But particularly, we want to highlight our ability to load in Parasolid-based file formats. So that's NX, SolidWorks, Solid Edge, some JT data, as well as the native Parasolid XT file format. So here I'm going to load a NX part. This is a 27 megabyte NX part, a file format that is based on Parasolid. And we are able to extract that Parasolid data very quickly. So this properties window here on the right shows you an interface into that Parasolid session. The first thing we have to do is read the file, and we're able to do that in just over 1.5 seconds on a laptop computer. Then we're able to extract the Parasolid data, tessellate all of those different surfaces, and then be able to display it to you very, very quickly. In addition to having an interface and being able to visualize this, there's a number of tools that we're able to provide to you as a developer to help you navigate not just the BREP data, the assembly tree, and all of your surfaces, but then also being able to visualize it and then use the different modeling operations that Parasolid offers you. But what we want to show you is our ability to load the Parasolid data natively and very quickly. So what I'm able to do is click on a surface. So here, this original surface, Parasolid surface, it's a canonical surface type. Notice here is a cone, and we're able to display that to you and give you access to that surface now. Notice too that the Parasolid tag, the ID there, the unique identifier within Parasolid, the original file, and also the Parasolid session will give you access to that. So now you can use Parasolid to process that data as you wish. Additionally, we have the ability to give you edge data and project points to your surfaces and your different edges. But what about some more complicated surfaces? Many times when you load a file, it has to go through numerous steps and different other types of technologies. If you were to load a more complicated surface like this, a blend surface here between the cone, a torus, and then we have a more complicated blend surface, many times you would have to load that from the file and then convert it into a form that your internal system requires, so your internal data translation system. But what we're really doing is providing data access. We're not translating it in any way. We're giving you direct access to that surface. And so instead of changing this maybe to a B-spline or a NURB surface, we bring it right into the Parasolid session. And here it's being represented as a native Parasolid blend surface. And that's done very, very quickly, efficiently, and accurately. And so that works exceptionally well for all of your Parasolid data. So if it's SolidWorks or NX or Solid Edge or XT data, we're able to bring that in extremely quickly. But many of our applications, many of the applications that you're building they need access to data outside of the Parasolid ecosystem. You might want to bring in step data or bring in IDIS data and stitch it and then load it into your Parasolid session. Or one of the largest formats that we see people using is CATIA. So how does this integration behave when it comes to, let's say, CATIA data? Here I'm going to load in the CATIA part, and again we're using Hoops Exchange to quickly load in that CATIA part, and then all of the surface data is loaded into Parasolid. So there still is an active Parasolid session that's happening here. But also notice within CATIA, we have additionally, we have PMI for manufacturing. We have different views that are associated with that PMI, and we're able to also extract that as well. If this was an assembly, we can extract that using Hoops Exchange and load that into the session itself. So if I wanted to, I could come in here, let's remove some of that PMI and look at just one specific view down here at the bottom of this part. And again, all of these CATIA surfaces, if it's a canonical surface, for instance, this is a cone. We're able to bring that in and load that as the Parasolid canonical surface. And again, we have now the Parasolid unique ID for that particular surface. But in some cases, especially in CATIA, there are surface types that exist in CATIA that don't exist in Parasolid, yet we still need to bring those in and allow you to natively evaluate and work with that data as well. So more complicated surfaces like this blend is, however, approximated as a B-spline surface. But as you noted, there's additional data in this file that's extremely useful as part of our engineering workflows, and one of which is that PMI data and the views associated with the PMI. And even though that isn't in Parasolid itself, there isn't a paradigm for PMI, we want to be able to associate that PMI that we're able to load with Hoops Exchange with the Parasolid session, with these features within Parasolid. And the bridge enables us to do that. So if you notice, I can click on a piece of PMI here, and internally within our bridge, we're able to give you that link between the PMI and the surface that it's, or the feature that it represents. So that was a really brief overview of what our technology looks like in action. It's something that you can take a test drive for yourself as part of our evaluation process. This Hoops Parasolid demo viewer is something that you can have access to and drive for yourself with your own data. We encourage you to do that. We'll include instructions at the end of the seminar to show you how to do that. But for now, let's give it back to Evan. He's going to talk a little bit about our history here between TechSoft and Siemens.
Yeah, good evening, everyone, or afternoon. This is Evan Knutula. I'm the Vice President of Sales for PLM Components at Siemens. I appreciate everyone being on this webinar. This slide shows you the bit of the history of Parasolid and working with TechSoft 3D. We have worked with TechSoft 3D for many years, beginning back in just around 2000, working with them on Hoops Visualize. So we have many Parasolid licensees out there today using the Hoops Visualize product for their graphics toolkit, graphics engine to accelerate their time to market. And TechSoft 3D also has been a reseller of Parasolid since that time as well. Our Parasolid team is all based in Cambridge, England. The technology, of course, came out of Cambridge University, and we have a very, very large team there working on Parasolid as well as many of our other component technologies. We publish our data format, XT, which is available and documented. And Parasolid has grown to 4.5 million end-user application seats out there with applications built on Parasolid. And then more recently, within the last couple of years, we began working with TechSoft 3D on the Hoops Exchange integration. And that's been developed over a long period of time in collaboration between our two teams. And now, at this point, we have released it. And we've taken the next step recently. You may have seen our press release where we are now actually reselling Hoops Exchange. We're very excited about that. It's now our premier, basically, data access solution for our Parasolid licensees out there. So we're very excited about this partnership. Parasolid itself is well established in the marketplace. It's our corporate standard, so I think the unique thing about Parasolid is it's the only third-party kernel out there you can license that is actually being also used by the vendor itself that licensed it. So we're licensing our core IP, and Parasolid really is core IP for Siemens PLM software. It's used in our NX product, so it's used in high-end CAD, as well as our mid-range offering with Solid Edge, and plus throughout our product line, of course, we're using it. But then, of course, we've been licensing it for many, many years, and we have a very prestigious customer base out there, over 150 ISVs currently licensing and using Parasolid Applications with over 350 individual applications. And at this point, and we do track this number quite closely, we've got 4.5 million approximately active seats out there, many times our closest competitor. Parasolid, because it's used in so many applications, you really have a big advantage using it in that much of the geometry out there in the world is based on XT. So with Hoops Exchange, it's a great solution. You bring that XT data in directly into your Parasolid session. You know, it is the leading 3D modeling component out there. Some of the operations that we do, you know, we allow authoring, editing, optimizing, querying, visualizing of the 3D data. There's over 850 functions in Parasolid at this point. And we've just announced and released with our 28.1 release of Parasolid our convergent modeling, which is really bringing the two worlds of facet modeling and BRET modeling together. We're very excited about this capability as well. So here's this is not a complete list, but this is a list of many of the applications that are using Parasolid today. And this isn't just a list of applications that are using it for interoperability. These are applications that are actually built on Parasolid and using it for modeling. You know, products like Onshape, you know, which is based on Parasolid and our D-Cube technology, you know, operating in the cloud. It's a very exciting customer of ours, and you can see we're operating in many different verticals. Companies like Stratasys, GrabCAD using Parasolid in their Workbench product. In the CAE world, Adapco is I want to mention because they're a heavy user of Hoops Exchange and Parasolid together. And of course, we have acquired them recently, so they're part of the Siemens family. But all this was done prior to that acquisition. So you can look through this list, you know, for yourself.
Yeah, and thanks for that, Evan. We also have the opportunity for people to ask questions. One came up recently here. Thanks for writing that in. And that was, where is the latest documentation for the XT file format?
Well, that ships with Parasolid. So if you're a Parasolid licensee or you're evaluating Parasolid, of course, you get it in the development toolkit. But you can also just send me an email. My email address is at the end of this, and we're happy to send it to you. We send that out to basically whoever asks for it. We will send you a copy of the XT format.
Okay, thanks. And thank you for that question. Thomas, another question here, and we appreciate these, is how does convergent modeling integrate with Hoops Exchange?
I think one of the nice things about Hoops Exchange is Hoops Exchange is not just a BRET-based solution. So when we integrate with some formats, we'll actually take in those triangle formats. And this is particularly important if you look at formats like, for example, in the BIM space, you have IFC, and a big part of the IFC format is some BRET elements, but they also have some triangle elements. So on the kind of roadmap for the integration is that as we have these kind of hybrid file formats, that we'll be able to bring in both systems into Parasolid.
Yeah. Also with Hoops Exchange, we support the STL file format, which is probably the most common currently file format for 3D printing. So that is a component of convergent modeling. And what's the benefit of having this integration between Hoops Exchange and Parasolid is those STL files many times they'll have issues, and so now you bring it into Parasolid, and you're able to now work with that data. But thank you so much for those questions. Keep them coming.
Oh, great. So I'm going to talk, this is Gavin Bridgman, I'm the VP of Products at TechSoft 3D, and I'm going to talk a little bit about Hoops Exchange initially, and then I'll kind of talk a little bit about the integration, and I'll kind of tie it back to some of the things that Jonathan was showcasing at the start of the presentation. But just in review, Hoops Exchange, we strongly believe is kind of like the premier solution for 3D data access. And one thing I wanted to clarify is that, we do provide data beyond the BREF. And, the BREF is really the most important part of the data for a lot of people, particularly the Parasolid community. But when you're talking about bringing in data, there really is data beyond the BREF, which is really important. So, for example, you have assembly trees, and assemblies can be very, very complicated. Parasolid supports assemblies, but when you kind of look into what's happening in SolidWorks or Creo or these applications, you have these more advanced constructs like configurations or family tables, and these kind of very advanced assembly constructs, and they're supported by Hoops Exchange. We also have concepts like filters. That's also a kind of assembly level attribute that is fully supported by the solution. We also support the BREF. I think I'll go into a little more detail about that in a second. Jonathan showed you some of the views in the PMI, and the ability the PMI is provided in a semantic form, and then also this kind of model-based definition movement is really about moving drawing data into a 3D model, and that's really facilitated by the support of views. And then, of course, there's metadata, and metadata is becoming more and more important. This is a lot of people want to reuse data, and how they reuse the data is by attaching attributes at an edge level, at a face level, and we bring all that data in and bring it over to the Parasolid data. So it really is a very robust solution when it comes to really going beyond the BREF. One of the really, really important parts of Hoops Exchange, and specifically with our integration with Parasolid, is that we will read the data natively and directly without translating it to an intermediate format. And so why that's really, really important is on two fronts. The first is that when we're bringing the data into Parasolid, so when we're talking about NX, when we're talking about Solid Edge, when we're talking about SolidWorks data, the BROS data is untouched. So you're not dealing with translation. And when you're not dealing with translation, it means that your success rate improves dramatically. So that's the first thing that's really, really important. The second part is that because we're not moving it to an intermediate format, it really means that our performance is really exceptional. And so, you'll have some solutions that might be reading in a CATIA file, and they'll read it into the CATIA system, then read it into another system, and then before they bring it into Parasolid. In our situation, in all cases, we're just accessing the data, and the only work that's done from a geometry standpoint is mapping that to Parasolid. So it really gives us extreme performance. And I think if you compare it to some competitors, we can be it's not 30 or 40%, it's a 2 or 3x performance increase, which is really pretty dramatic. And also, from a memory standpoint, because we don't have multiple incarnations of the data, you really have a low memory footprint. The last thing is we have very broad platform support. Parasolid is supported on a lot of different platforms, and Hoops Exchanges as well. Hoops Exchange is something that we build. How we're able to do that is that we don't have any external dependencies, and so we're able to support it on different platforms. This has always been a really important issue for people in the CAE space, where Linux is pretty prominent from a desktop perspective. But also it's becoming very relevant today as people are looking at cloud implementations, and where Linux is really pretty important when you're going up and putting something up on the Amazon cloud. And we support all our formats across all these different devices. And as you kind of think and look into the future, and I don't think mobile is a platform today that is really kind of a content creation platform from a mechanical CAD perspective. Well, you can imagine as we look into the future, that's somewhere that we'll be able to go, and I'm sure Parasolid will be too.
Yeah, and Evan, what about you were talking about the cloud earlier today. Is that a real direction you see the industry going in? moving applications up onto the cloud?
Well, I mean, absolutely. In the last number of years, we've been working more and more with both existing customers that are wanting to move their applications to the cloud, as well as new players such as Onshape, for example. And they have found our components to work very well in a high-performance server-based environment.
Yeah, it really seems to be an industry trend. Isn't that true?
Absolutely.
All right, so here's another question. Would it be possible to import data into Parasolid session in memory? Well, we start with that.
So we're going to get on to talking a little more details about the integration in a minute. But right now, what actually happens is that there's a very high-level single API that allows you to take a CAD file and just read it into your existing Parasolid session. So if you're talking about a specific situation of just having a single MPA and you have an existing session, that's exactly how the API works today and the integration works today.
Yeah, so thank you for that question. So there is no intermediate file. When you use the integration between Exchange and Parasolid, it gets loaded into memory and into the Parasolid session. You don't have to save to an intermediate file. And you bring up a really good point there, especially within the server-based applications, there would be no benefit of having that intermediate file. It's undesirable, and that is already built there into the application and into the integration as it exists now.
So this is just a quick review of the formats. We support all the major formats from a mechanical CAD perspective, all the standards, all the native formats. Kind of touching back at what Jonathan was talking about, you can see with some of these formats that they're, for example, I talked about IFC, that's a hybrid format that has triangle and VREF data in it. Similarly, we support some triangle formats like Vermal and STL that, it's not part of the integration today, but they will be able to be integrated and take advantage of the convergence modeling. Yep, that's pretty much it. And so I think before I kind of delve into the specifics of the integration, this has really been a great technology partnership. We've had as Evan mentioned at the start of the presentation, we've had a long relationship with Parasolid, and the release, Parasolid is a very robust system, but there are ways to better construct the data to bring into Parasolid. Parasolid obviously has a huge insight into what its customers want from default. When you're, data translation fundamentally, when you're talking about all the Parasolid-based formats, there's really not much decisions you need to make. The data is already constructed, and so you bring it in. But when you're talking about Creo or CATIA or Inventor, these are different formats that have a different geometry engine. And the different geometry engine has different mathematical models that underpin that system. And so as we're bringing data from one of those systems to another system, there's translation occurring. And so this is kind of deep mathematical concepts. And through talking with Siemens, they were really able to give us some insight on what their customers want to do when it came to how we deal with certain surface types. And so it's been a really fantastic partnership. I think that Siemens are a very thorough organization. The Parasolid team are a very capable and hard-driving team. And we initially launched the integration after a year of work, or a year and a half of work, and it was launched last year. And that was a great validation for the integration in the first place, for Siemens to give it a stamp of approval. And then kind of like a year later, after furthering working on it, it got to a level that they were able to then take that and bring it on as an internal product. So this has really been the result of hard work, not just on tech side, but on the Siemens core team, and helping driving us and ensuring that we have the data coming into the Parasolid system exactly as the Parasolid customers was needed. And with the long-term goal is that you want to take advantage and leverage all this advanced capabilities that's within Parasolid, and by working with Parasolid, we're able to do that and ensure that the data is brought in such a way that you can ensure maximum data reuse.
Great. Before we continue, we have another question. Thank you. What exact release numbers are supported for SolidWorks and Inventor?
So we support all the releases. I think, and I think we go back as far as, somewhere in the 90s. But we support all the formats to the latest version. Our commitment to our customers is, getting out support for the latest version within 3 months of the software going live. And so we have the latest version. I think today, with our latest release, that our last release went out in, I think it was in the March timeframe, and at that point it was up to date to every format. So it has supported SolidWorks 2016, it supported Inventor 2016, and we do 3 releases a year, and generally at that point we've updated to the latest version.
Great.
So this is kind of delving a little bit into the architectural diagram. As I kind of mentioned earlier, we really want to make this as easy to use as possible. So if you want to kind of make some assumptions, I kind of mentioned you kind of get into some family tables and some advanced assembly constructs that are not supported by Parasolid. But if you are not too concerned about that, or you're just working on a part level, through a single API you can just load the data into your system. So that's really, really attractive that you can take a CATIA assembly or a SolidWorks assembly, and through one API the data gets loaded into Parasolid in a full Parasolid session. As I mentioned, if the data is Parasolid based, no translation down at the part level occurs. So the BREF is brought in, meaning very fast because it's not being translated, but also, and more importantly, the quality remains. And then, if it's these other formats, obviously we leverage capabilities in Parasolid, and there's a very advanced technology that Siemens makes available called Body Shop as part of the relationship. They allowed us to include that with the bridge. So we have we use that internally, and that really helps address some of these translation issues, particularly when you're talking about IGES and step data. And Parasolid really is, when you look at a combination of Parasolid and Body Shop, it really has a lot of capabilities around sewing things together, and it works very, very well. The one thing is that, as I mentioned, when you get beyond the BREF, there is important information there. So, for example, the assembly tree was something I was talking about, the views and the PMI. If you want to get access to that data, Exchange provides the capability, and you can work then at a lower level where you essentially just get the bridge to work at a part level, providing all the BREF data over at that lower level. Great. So let's talk a little bit about what goes on when we're bringing this data over to Parasolid. Once we move outside the Parasolid community, outside the world of NX, Solid Edge, and SolidWorks, we need to start thinking about data translation, because again, you're adapting the data from, let's say it's Creo to the mathematical engine of Parasolid, and so we need to essentially massage and tune the data. So the first thing, and Jonathan showed it, when you kind of read in the CATIA file, you'll notice that the canonical forms of the geometry is maintained. So, all these systems, they have support for, these canonical forms. So when you're talking about conical surfaces, you're talking about spherical or planar surfaces, all those we bring over and maintain in their original form. Then when you get to some of these advanced flange surfaces, you do need to adapt the data. And so that's where we do some work. Generally, surprisingly, for the native format, it's generally a well-constructed model. And these systems just don't allow you to create data that has gaps in it. But when you get into the IGES and STEP and these kind of formats, and some of the older CAT formats like CATIA V4, you are starting to deal with some geometry issues. And the issues can be around inconsistencies around the geometry. It can be around the topology. So we do a lot of work of adjusting topological tolerances, and we tighten gaps. We can, in some respects, simplify some surfaces as analytics. We really do a lot of work around ensuring that data is a high-quality model when you bring it into Parasolid, with the goal being around this concept of reusing the data. You know, particularly when you look at the Parasolid community, generally they're coming in and they're doing some heavyweight geometry manipulation of the data. And we really want to put a lot of energies into that. And we use Parasolid to do that. So the bridge is using extensive APIs like sewing is a very advanced and you know, very robust capability of Parasolid. We use that. We use a lot of top-level capabilities of Body Shop. And again, it's about this data reuse. And one that is I mentioned here is propagating persistent IDs, and that's not so much a geometry issue, but when you think of people doing data reuse, what they're really starting to do is attach metadata down at a face level or an edge level, and so we do a lot of work of maintaining that data and bringing it into the system. So you'll notice a lot of, you know, in the mechanical CAD design world today, you're starting to notice about people reading in native data and saying it's untouched, and they're modeling around that. Well, how they're achieving that is by essentially accessing the persistent IDs of objects and reconnecting their data in there. So,
yeah, I might mention, Gavin, also our Body Shop technology has been around for many years, something we've worked very hard on, our development teams to improve and enhance over the years. We have a lot of customers using it, and I mean, it really automates a lot of this stuff in a very elegant way, using the functions in Parasolid itself. So yeah, the combination of what TechSoft 3D is doing with Hoops Exchange, Parasolid, and Body Shop together is very powerful.
Yeah, it's been really, really useful, and a fantastic piece of technology. I agree.
All right, here's a question. Does Hoops Exchange work directly with the CAD files, or for some formats require a running instance of the CAD file original software? So, for instance, if we want access to CATIA data, do we have to be running CATIA on the computer running your software, or running SolidWorks, or running Pro-E or Creo?
So that's the fantastic thing about Hoops Exchange. That's what it does. It enables you to be unlocked from the CAD system. So no, you absolutely don't need any external software for you to read those 22 formats and bring them into Parasolid. All you need is Hoops Exchange and Parasolid. And so, yeah, really no dependency, and that's the true value of the Hoops Exchange technology, is that ability to read in CAD data without needing the original CAD software. And one thing I'll say is you know, the success rate we have, you know, for example, GrabCAD is a user of the Hoops Exchange technology, and the success rates are, you know, high 90s are the success rates with these CAD formats. So the success rate really is pretty high.
So what are some of the benefits, then, of not having to be tied to a CAD system? For instance, memory footprint. When we talk about the memory footprint of Hoops Exchange, how is that impacted by not being tied to a CAD system?
Well, you know, I think that the big one is obviously, you know, from a cost standpoint, you don't have a dependency on an external piece of software. But yeah, from a memory standpoint, again, you're not shuttling the data between different systems. And if you're shuttling the data between different systems, there's a memory impact. There's also you know, there's a management of different processes, and you know, maybe, you know, in some cases, you know, the CAD APIs, there's this kind of belief like, oh, if we use the CAD APIs and use the CAD system, well, we're going to get all the data that, you know, we're going to get 100% translation success. Well, in those cases, you're first of all dependent on the CAD APIs, so they may or may not expose the, you know, the data that you're looking for, and then it's still software that you need to do about bringing it over to your system. So even if you're using the CAD system, you do need to adapt the data to the mathematical definition of your underlying system.
It probably helps with deployment as well. You're not bound to having it sit on just one computer or one operating system. It's very easy to deploy. We're talking about the cloud. It's very easy to put this up on a server, on an AWS instance, and just have it churning through data without needing that CAD system as well. Thank you for that question. And so this was meant to be a real brief overview of the technology partnership between TechSoft and Siemens, and our two very compelling technology offerings. That integration is tight. It allows you to bring in your native data from Parasolid efficiently without without touching it. There's also a very high success rate with all of the different CAD formats out there without having to be bound to a CAD system. I'd like to open it up to a broader range of questions. Thank you so much for asking them throughout the session. But we wanted to allow this opportunity for others to ask questions right now before we close up the webinar. All right, is it possible to change the scale of a Parasolid file, for instance, change the units of measurement?
So when we're reading the data in, we are looking at the scaling information and representing that in the Parasolid data that we create. And then at that point, of course, Parasolid provides a whole variety of APIs around to then modify it to your heart's content.
All right, how about any other questions before we say goodbye for the day? Well, we'd like to thank everyone for participating. We hope that this may have sparked your interest in taking a look at one or the other or both of these technologies and integrating it within your software application. We'd like to point out, please contact us. Evan here at Siemens, Gavin, and myself, Jonathan at TechSoft 3D. Those are our emails. And there's the opportunity for you to have a free 60-day evaluation of these two different SDKs as well as the bridge. And that's completely unbounded, so you'd be able to use the SDK in its fullest form, use it within your application with your own data, and you'd have the assistance of our engineering team to work through that integration as well. So we'd like to really offer that to you as a next step. If this is something that you feel interests you now or in the near future as you look at your development roadmap, that's been a very effective way to get your hands on the technology. So we can talk about how it behaves and show you the Hoops Parasolid demo viewer, but really getting it on your system and working with your data. Part of that evaluation is that demo viewer that we started the webinar with, and you get a download of that, and you're able to use that to quickly evaluate the integration, the success rates of your data, and see really just the speed and the quality of this integration, these two toolkits. So we encourage you to sign up for that. Also, we encourage you to reach out to any one of us with any of your specific questions. So maybe if you didn't come to mind today, and you do have questions after the webinar, we'd be happy to entertain those as well. But we'd really like to thank you for your time today. We know that everyone's busy and they have busy schedules. We appreciate you being able to participate and listen in, and of course all of your questions.